Good morning, or good afternoon actually. This is Pastor Larry, and it's time for a Tuesday teaching tidbit. Hope everything's well with you and your family, and that you're doing well. I just hope you're doing well, because like I say from time to time, you should be doing well because you're alive and you're able to watch this video. And one of the things I say is, this is the day that the Lord have made. I rejoice and I'm glad in it. And because I'm aware, I know what's going on. I'm aware of my surroundings. I'm breathing. My 5 physical senses are working. So it's a lot to be thankful for. The older I get, the more gratitude I have for being alive. I have gratitude for being in this country, the things that we get to enjoy in this country. This country isn't perfect. Nowhere is. If it's a perfect place, I shouldn't go there because I would mess it up. But a lot of gratitude, because a lot of good things I've had access to and access to be able to do. And definitely not perfect. And it's anyway, I just wanted to put that out there, that it's a great day to be alive. It's about 101 degrees today here in New Jersey, and which is kind of warm for us. But so hey, that's why I got on yellow. I matched the sun. One of us is going to win. No, I'm teasing. But anyway, here, listen. The channel is L space SHADDAI.Philly, and if you want to contact me, reach me at pastor.lshaddai@gmail.com, and definitely ask that you subscribe to the channel, that you hit the like button, that you hit the notification bell, share the channel. And okay, so I've got a lot of things, right? And then the last thing is to make sure you drop a comment, because I really appreciate comments, and because that really, it helps the algorithm, helps the channel, and so we appreciate that. The number one thing I think I always mention to you, I try to, because the Ruach, or the Spirit of the Living God, put this in my heart, my mind, about 4 or 5 months ago, I guess, is to make sure that I share with people how to be in the right position with the Most High God, with the Father. Because even though I share things, and I've been reading the Bible for a long time, so I probably know a decent amount, but it's more important. I've been reading the Bible since I was 12, and I'm 67. So that would be, what, 55 years? Wow. Didn't realize it. And 55 years, I'm not an expert. That's a shame, isn't it? But I've been reading the Bible since I was 12. I started reading it every day. I could have read the Bible every day, but if I didn't do what I say next, it wouldn't matter. If I read the Bible every day, but did not make Yahweh my God and King, how do you do that? By the way he said it, through his Son, which is to accept his Son, to become born again. And so I did that. I accepted his Son at age 21. And so since then, I've been born again, and I started changing. It says that to renew your mind in Romans chapter 12. But I accepted his Son as Lord and Savior through my words, through my mouth. I asked him to become my Lord and my Savior, and to be Lord of my heart. And then I started reading the scripture, reading the word, and that's how I became born again. And then my mind has been in the process of being renewed as I've been reading the Bible pretty much every day for the past 55 years, I guess. And now, did I miss a day? Yeah, because I'm not religious. And so if I miss a day, I don't beat myself up. I just go back and pick up again and where I left off. And say, that's hopefully that's wisdom for somebody that may need it to hear that. Is to don't beat yourself up, because your performance isn't what puts you in the right position anyway. You know, and so I wouldn't even worry about your performance, and because your if your performance worked, you wouldn't need the Messiah, right? Okay. Anyway, so we've been talking about the name over the past few weeks or so, I guess, and I talked about started out with how. And I don't think I talked about Abram's name being changed from Abram to Abraham, but Abram's name was changed. And then Abram had a son named Isaac. Isaac had 2 sons named Esau and Jacob. And then Jacob's name was changed from Jacob, which kind of meant the supplanter or striving, conniver type person. And his name was changed to Israel after wrestling with the personification, I guess, of the Messiah all night, or the angel, what it said. And his name was changed to Israel. And what Israel, it means a couple of things. It means struggle with Yahweh, or Yahweh prevails. And I like to look at it as Yahweh prevails. And then anyway, so that was the lineage of that started in Genesis chapter 3, where when Adam and Eve fell, and Yahweh said to the woman and to Satan, said, your seeds are going to be in strife with each other. And he says, and her seed is going to crush your head, and your seed will bruise her seed's heel. And so her seed had to come, and her seed came through the was the Messiah, and through the line of Judah, and his name was Yahusha, or Yeshua, or you might say Jesus. What it means is Yahweh saves. And so that was the connection from Yahweh prevails, or you prevail with Yahweh, to Yahweh saves, which would have been from Israel to Yeshua, or Yahusha. And then I said the connection between those two was the line it came through was the line of Judah. Judah was that thread that was from here to here, and Judah what means something. So each of them means something. Like I mentioned, Israel means prevail with Yahweh. Yeshua, Yahusha means Yahweh saves, or salvation is from him. But Judah, which was that connecting line, is means praise, and that was his name. His mom named him Judah. Leah named him Judah, and it says that the scepter would never depart from praise. And I mentioned a couple of things about praise, but so I want to say, and we've been talking about the name. I said the title of the playlist is what is a name, or what's in a name, and but I want to read something to you, because this is interesting. So the name, like I mentioned, the name was Judah, but Judah had brothers, but their name wasn't the one that was synonymous, or the connection with Yahweh, and the connection with God, the connection with salvation. I mentioned that praise connects us to the Father, and it says that there's a couple of things. One is in both of them in Proverbs. One is Proverbs 8. The other, Psalms 8 and Psalm 22. One says that praise stills the enemy, causes the enemy to be locked in place, and the other psalm says that Yahweh inhabits our praises. So praise is a connector from us to Yahweh. And I was talking about praise by faith. And one thing I didn't add was that about a name. So that name Judah meant something, but there's also a second part to that completes that circle, which is covenant. When you're in covenant with Yahweh, and so covenant is important. So let me just give you an example. In Genesis chapter 16 is when you find that Abram had a son, but it wasn't Isaac. His son's name was Ishmael. So Genesis chapter 16. And then in Genesis chapter 25, I want to pick that up. I'm going to read this one, because you've all heard about Ishmael, but a lot of times there's not a lot of detail given into this one. Genesis 25, verse 1, Sarah has died. So Abraham's wife, Sarah, died. Isaac's mom died. And then again, verse 1, Abraham took a wife, and her name was Keturah. And she bare him Zimran, Jokshan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shuan. And so Abraham had another wife, Keturah, and she bore him 6 sons, Zimran, Jokshan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. And Midian, if you remember hearing about the Midianites, they were some of the people that, when they sold Joseph into slavery, Midianites and Ishmaelites. So both of it, they were basically his cousins, or tribes of his cousins, if you think about it. But listen to this. Here's why I'm bringing this up. Why am I bringing this up? Because how come when it's talking about the covenant, these people aren't brought up? Like Keturah, Zimran, Jokshan, Midian, Ishbak, Shua. Their names, they were from a covenant man. They were from Abraham, who had a covenant with Yahweh. Matter of fact, let's turn back to Genesis 15. This is where a lot of people talk about, blessing Israel and all that. And listen to this. In Genesis chapter 15, Yahweh strikes a covenant with Abraham. He promised a son to him, and he says, I'm going childless, blah, blah, blah. And he says, how will I know this? And so Yahweh said, here's how you do it. He says, cut a covenant with me. I'm kind of consolidating the words. And so at verse 10, Abraham took all this stuff, divided them, laid them in the midst. And then at verse 12, it says, when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and a horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abraham, listen to this. This is part of the covenant. Verse 13, he says, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with a great substance. So Abraham's seed is going to go through this. Ishmael was Abraham's seed. They didn't go through that. Esau was Abraham's seed through Jacob. Jacob had a son named Esau and Isaac. Esau didn't go through that. Abraham had sons that I mentioned their names, those 6 sons, Jokshan, Midian, Shua, and all that. And they didn't go through that because the name was connected to the covenant. It's not just by itself. As a matter of fact, when you read in Matthew 7, I've shared this a number of times, that, and actually I'll read that real quickly. Because you might say, oh, here's my, I got this name and all this stuff. But if you have a name without a covenant, doesn't matter. Here's this, chapter 7 of Matthew, verse 21. It says, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. He that is in covenant with my Father which is in heaven. Verse 22. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? We've done things, we've done stuff, and we tried to put your label on it. And in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works. And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. Think about this, and don't write me letters. The name that we've put on the Messiah, we put Christ, and that wasn't his name. That was just a title. Just like Paul is, they say Apostle Paul. That was his title because of what he did. He did apostle type things, so that's why they called him Apostle Paul. But his real name was Paul of Tarsus, or whatever. Yeshua, Yahweh, or Yahusha. His last name was not Christ. As a matter of fact, a lot of times they would say Ben or son of Joseph or whatever. But his last name was not Christ. We just call him Yeshua the Christ, or Yeshua HaMashiach, which means the Christ, the anointed one, the sent one. So that's not his name. But here we have people that are calling themselves in their names, and they're calling themselves Christians. But that wasn't his name. We did this. We put this label on us of Christianity, and we said, I've done this, I've prophesied, I've done this. And he said, depart from me, I never knew you. He said, if you're doing the will of my Father which is in heaven, not having this label on you, and I've said this before, which is we, at our church, our fellowship, we go by 3 things, 3 tenets, which is relationship instead of religion. We don't try to do stuff. We can't perform ourselves into his way, into his kingdom. We do stuff because of relationship. But so relationship is primary. So relationship instead of religion. And we say truth instead of tradition. See, I shared before, I think last week, I said on the one talking about the Gog-Magog war, and I just shared, I've been reading the Bible 55 times, 55 years. But, not 55 times, that would have been one time a year. But I said I'm not a biblical scholar. I've been reading it a long time, but that doesn't make me a biblical scholar. I can't read Hebrew and can't read Greek. I can read my Strong's and Concordance and different helps that'll give me the definition of the Hebrew word and the Greek word. But I'm not a biblical scholar. But I am even better than that. I am a biblical believer. That's the third tenet in our church, our fellowship, which is truth or relationship instead of religion, truth instead of tradition, biblical believer instead of cultural Christian. Because a believer, that's an act, that's a verb. And a cultural Christian is a label. They call a lot of people Christians. They call rappers that have all kind of wild lyrics. They say, oh, he's a Christian because he said, I want to thank God for winning this award. And then he goes and does his stuff, and they're twerking and jerking and all this other stuff. And that doesn't look like that's the will of his Father in heaven. So they'll say, oh, I did this in your name. I said, I did this. And again, I'm not blasting every rapper. I'm sure there's people that rap responsibly that don't have all that stuff and aren't taking advantage of young women and get them in their videos with their booties all out and hanging out windows and stuff. So I'm sure there's people that don't do that. So I'm not trying to just paint everybody with the same picture. I was just trying to give an example, I guess. And if it failed, that example failed, I apologize. But that was my example. When you do your video, you can do a better one, and so I appreciate that. But anyway, so where am I going with all this? Because the covenant is what's most important. As a matter of fact, when they were out of covenant, when Israel or Judah, the southern kingdom, were out of covenant, when they were out of covenant with him, they were cut off. Yeah, they're cut off because he said, depart from me, I don't know you. When you're out of covenant. But he says, just like I think it's 2 Chronicles chapter 7, he says, if my people, so you still are your people, but you're out of covenant. So when you're not in covenant, guess what? You don't get the covenant blessings, the covenant, the results of a covenant. As a matter of fact, God, let me finish. It says, if my people are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray, and return from their wicked ways. He will hear from heaven and he will heal their land. He will come back and bring the blessing, So I didn't want to totally put all that out, everything. But listen to this, and I'm going to read this last thing, and we'll be done. I just wanted to really hammer home the fact that Yahweh, he's into names. Like I said, what's in the name? That's why matter of fact, he renamed people a lot. As a matter of fact, when this is all over, he says we're going to get a new name. We're going to get the name that he wants for us. He'll give us a new name. So names are important. He's not going to give you some name that says slither under a rock. You know what I'm saying? He's going to give you a name that makes sense, that's important, and that'll be special to you because it was special to him. But listen to this. I'm talking about the name thing. Because even when we were in slavery, he didn't change our name. In Exodus chapter 14, as a matter of fact, he doesn't go by the name of a nation as much as he goes by the name of a family when he's dealing with people. Listen to this in Exodus chapter 14, verse 3. In verse 1, actually, I'll read 1. And Yahweh or Yahuwah spoke unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel. Who? Israel, which was Yahweh prevails. They're not a nation yet because they don't even have a country. They were in captivity. And he still knew them from their lineage, from their DNA, because of the covenant. And when they called out to them, he delivered them because of the name and the covenant that name is associated with. So that's important. So it's not just the name, the covenant that's that name is associated with. But listen to this. He says, speak unto the children of Israel, verse 2, that they turn and encamp before Pihahiroth, however you pronounce it, between Migdol and the sea, over against Baal Zephon. Before it shall you encamp by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land, and the wilderness have shut them in. So why am I bringing that up? Because like I said, they still have that name even though they were in captivity. It's not like, you know what I'm saying? Like they were in captivity. They still had the name, but they needed the covenant to succeed. So the name with the covenant is when it becomes full circle. So you might have a name, you might have a name, but that name needs to be associated with the covenant. So anyway, that's it. Just wanted to put this out there. Shalom, and I'll talk to you soon.